What really separates one business from another is not even product or service. Building that brand really separates you. And if you don't build that brand, you won't do well in the long run.
We are witnessing the technology evolution in front of us. We don't know what the outcome, we don't know how far it will go. We just know that train has left the train station.
It's just going to get harder and harder to make tech decisions. You need less tech, not more. You need the right tools. Make your bets on fewer things and lean into them to be more successful.
I'm Sara Fatz. I lead community and awareness at Progress, and this is 10 Minute Martech.
Storytelling is what we do as marketers. So then you really start to learn how to connect your soul and data, which is storytelling, I would say.
That's Frans Riemersma, founder of Martech Tribe. Let's get started. Frans, I would love to know what that Martech idea is that's swimming around in your brain right now.
Of course, it's GenAI driven, right? It's changing the game completely. And that's easy to say, but which direction, right? And that's what we're thinking about a lot. And for instance, if you look in companies, we've been big on the data layer, and the data layer is really a great thing. So it's connecting, all the dots, everything we can know, want to know, need to know about customers, touch points, etc. So basically the content layer was always a bit broken. And now with GenAI, we can integrate it and more on a semantic level rather than an API level. And that's a completely different paradigm. So, and then it should come together into personalization. Exciting trends.
That's very exciting. How do you keep the human in the loop with all of this, innovation that's happening?
We're still, getting to grips with GenAI and how to do it. And the applications we see are not that advanced yet. But I think in the near future, what we have fixed is the data layer and now the content layer. And now we basically have no excuse but to surprise and delight the customer and really think about the customer. What is it they really, really need right now, right? There's one big mistake we always keep making with technology, and that is that we think it will solve things for us. But in the end, even GenAI, it's still a tool. So just like a hammer, it will not build your house. You need to hold it and you need to hammer something in the wall. Create that wall and think about having that wall in that place, And I think these are all tools that can really help us. We have to design that house for our customer. And we had some nice conversations earlier where I mentioned some cases where you think, why am I solving your workaround? So your product is faulty. It's not complete.
Yeah, I love that. Don't bother me with your workaround. How do you make an application or a Martech stack that actually works with the human in mind at the end, the end user. At the end of the day, we are trying to interact and engage with humans, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's changing the game of customers, for customers, but also for, the users. And I think in the future, we will go into a situation where we don't have drop-downs or select boxes. We might not need them anymore. And think about that. You just prompt something, and that is the game changer.
That's kind of leads me to my next question for you, which is when, in the report, the State of Martech report that you and Scott Brinker wrote, you quoted Ethan Mollick, and he said if AI's development completely stopped, we'd still have 5 to 10 years of rapid change, right? You and Scott both said that, it's not going to stop. But what should Martech leaders be thinking about right now when they're thinking about the fact that AI is not going to stop, and we're just going to keep on this meteoric rise of change?
I'd like to make a distinction between the technology and the humans using that technology. Those are two separate things in my mind. So there are two velocities, you could say, of the hype cycle. So one is really, GenAI is really working well. The technology. So we have had our disappointments, our peaks and valleys, and now it's, we can do stuff. It's really powerful. And that is what Ethan Mollick says. That is not stopping, it's continuing and accelerating. But then still, we don't know how to really, really use it. So we're trying to figure out what the use cases are. And this was in our report where we did a survey, 283 people. And we asked them, what is it you're really using? And they're using it in a very basic way. Content, image creation, copywriting, reviewing, translation, brainstorming, not even publishing content. It's really on the internal user, not so much the customer side. But we haven't even touched on, what is it? Lead prospecting, lead mining, or chat with your data. Well, there's the empathy again, right? Understanding what the customer really tries to do, because we have now the touch points, but we also know which headlines or subject lines they clicked open in an email. Use that, process that, and then you start to understand the wording, the keywords, the semantic of your customer. So really talking the language of your customer. Everything is made simple by looking at the customer, taking really the customer first, and then reverse engineer and say, what is it I need? And I call this process noise canceling, because there's a lot of noise. So cancel the noise and zoom in, hone in on your customer. What do they really, really need? And now with GenAI, we can maybe equip marketing teams with doing the same.
You also had an article in Martech.org last fall. You called out 3 distinct ways that GenAI is transforming that Martech landscape through your isolated GenAI solutions, your embedded AI features and disruptors. But I don't even think we've gotten to the true disruptors yet. Do you believe that, or is there more there that you can talk about?
So indeed, there are 3 groups that we just pinpointed. And when I wrote that article for Martech.org, I mean, the growth just in 2024 was 70% only GenAI specific tools. Just, without GenAI, they wouldn't have had existed. Then we didn't know really about the embedded GenAI solutions in the, the existing tools that are already out there. Those tools are already embracing it just as much as the standalone tools. But the disruptors we haven't really seen yet. So it's completely redefining the entire category. And that is something that I think is possible. One thing that we are kind of maybe rediscovering is composability. It's something Scott Brink and I wrote about, in our report last year. Composability is nothing new. It's nothing sensational. It's not the next big thing. It's something we do already. I mean, look at coders. They have libraries, objects, classes, plugins. They use all kinds of stuff. But because business people didn't understand it, we put it into a solution. And then it's easier to understand. And you have to use the entire solution, just like a Swiss Army knife. You have to use everything all the time. Really? No, you don't. You need bits and pieces for your customer at that moment.
In a lot of cases, there's this, maybe it's FOMO, I don't know, but I have to have this piece of technology is the best. This is the best. Well, guess what? It's not the best if it's not the right thing for your customer or for your end user.
Yeah, exactly. And if you look at the hype cycle, which is, something that has been applied to technology in the market, but it's also the Dunning-Kruger effect, the same curve. So it's very, and it's Kubler-Ross curve. We can apply many of those things and overlay them. So technology is a very emotional thing, psychological thing, if you think about it. And what I learned is that you can chop up the hype cycle in 2 pieces. It's the hype, and then let's say the tail. And in that first part, you strongly believe that all the answers are outside you because you're an apprentice. You have to learn. So you externalize and the answers are in the software. This software will solve my problem. And then you get angry because it doesn't. Then you customize it because you're unique. And then you find out, oh, that's not working. And that's where you have the catharsis and, the enlightenment. And you go like, you know what? It's maybe inside me, the answer. And maybe I should look better and resonate with my customer. What would I do? Linked with the data. Right. So then you really start to learn how to connect your soul and data, which is storytelling, I would say.
Right. Yeah. And I would love your thoughts on this, that the more advanced and sophisticated our technology gets from either an AI perspective or even from our Martech stack, the more deeply you have to start thinking about and looking into that and taking into consideration that human side of the experience.
100%, yes. In the old days, there was just, one person being the brand. The reputation of the founder was the brand. And that's why we talk about today about brand personality or identity. It has to mimic the founder who we trust, love, rely on, etc. Then the industrial age came, digitalization, Martech. It's actually in our way all the time. Not nice to say because I'm, publishing, co-publishing the Martech map, but it's actually in our way. And now with closing the loop with the data layer, the content layer with GenAI, connecting the dots, now we can cancel all that noise and we can see the customer again and go like, okay, listen, I mean, we should have done that anyways. Don't get me wrong. This is not an excuse, but it was hard, and we're completely overwhelmed by all the solutions out there, try them all. And I see a lot of, we collect a lot of stacks. We study a lot of stacks of real life companies. Many companies have a lot of Martech. I'm not saying too much, because you need 20% of each of those tools, right? Those features really create the value, but reach 20%. And that's exactly, where you need to think about the customer and reverse engineer.
How many pieces of technology do you believe should be in a Martech stack?
Well, we could make a calculation. For quick experimentation purposes, I like to teach and lecture at business schools and universities. And we've experimented a lot with business cases. And what we see is that a typical customer journey, it can consist of many touch points and many data points and many content items. But the essential ones that really are, critical and defining those moments of truth are like 3 to 5 for each. So this whole idea of we need to be everywhere anytime is more a concept of stalking rather than marketing. So maybe, we just look at 3 to 5 different touch points, content pieces, data points. So I think, you don't need a whole lot. You just need those 20%. And then, because maybe some software vendors think now, oh, he wants to get rid of all the Martech. No, not at all. I think we have to be bold enough as an industry to say, listen, this 20%, maybe you pay triple because it quadruples your revenue as a brand. So it's a relative, maybe 20% of what we're doing right now, which is maybe 10 times more worth in value and license fees.
You talked about the brand, and you talked about the founder being part of the brand, whether it's on webinars or in some of the writing that you've done about a brand LLM. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean by that and how marketers should or could be thinking about that today?
A brand LLM, for me, a brand has to do with the identity. It's not just a logo, and it's not just being compliant with the brand. So what it basically becomes in your company is a kind of a touchstone, right? You look at that, you train it, and you feed it with all the stuff that is really concerned with your brand, with the founder maybe even. How would the founder, would he or she have responded? Within which boundary? So you're setting guardrails and boundaries, and now you're creating a campaign and you map it against the brand LLM and you see if it's compliant, where it can optimize. So you become more uniform, quicker. I call it a touchstone, but we know how powerful GenAI is. You can also make it create collateral or campaigns for you. And it can, maybe feed directly into your engagement channels. Why not? So it's a very powerful concept. So yeah. I think if you then combine it with data layer information like audience, touch points, they came back to the pricing page 3 times. Now you have to send this piece of information. I think then you're there.
One last question for you. Where are you getting your information and inspiration right now?
The customer.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I do read a lot of blogs and reports, of course. But there was this podcast. This gentleman said, I never watch competition. I always look at the customer. Why? Because if there's something that competition does really well, I don't have to copy them. I just have to learn through the customer what it is that makes them tick and why do they like it. And then maybe even do it in a better way. So the customer, is boss in the end.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Frans. This has been amazing as always. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. Loved it. Thank you.